Welcome to Mindcast, the podcast where we dive deep into the biggest questions shaping our understanding of intelligence, consciousness, and the future of human knowledge. I'm your host, Will, and today we're tackling one of the most fascinating and contentious debates of our time. Can artificial intelligence actually create new knowledge? Now, I know what you're thinking. Will, my ChatGPT just helped me write a research proposal, and my AI assistant found connections between papers I never would have discovered on my own. Of course AI creates knowledge. But hold on. It's not that simple. Today, we're exploring a groundbreaking academic paper that digs into this question with the philosophical rigor it deserves. We'll discover why this isn't just a technical question about what AI can do, but a fundamental question about the nature of knowledge itself. So here's the central puzzle. Large language models are trained on existing data. They're prediction machines, essentially sophisticated pattern matchers. They don't conduct experiments, they don't make observations about the natural world, and they don't have conscious experiences. So how could they possibly create genuinely new knowledge? The answer might surprise you. And by the end of this episode, I think you'll see AI's role in knowledge creation in a completely different light. We're not just talking about better search engines or writing assistants. We're talking about a fundamental transformation in how human knowledge advances, what might be the dawn of a new scientific paradigm. Let's start by asking the most basic question. What exactly do we mean by knowledge anyway? When we talk about knowledge creation, we need to get philosophical for a moment. Traditionally, philosophers distinguish between different types of knowledge: procedural knowledge, knowing how to do something; acquaintance knowledge, being familiar with something; and most importantly for science, propositional knowledge, facts that can be expressed like water is composed of hydrogen and oxygen. Propositional knowledge traditionally comes from two sources: empirical knowledge from experiments and observations, and rational knowledge from reason alone, like mathematical truths. But here's where things get really interesting. The paper I'm discussing today argues that AI forces us to recognize a third critical category: synthesized knowledge. This is new propositional knowledge that arises not from collecting new empirical data, but from making novel connections, interpretations, and manipulations of existing information. Now, synthesis isn't new. Back in 1930, researchers D. Schlesinger and M. Stevenson defined research as the manipulation of things, concepts, or symbols for the purpose of generalizing to extend, correct, or verify knowledge. They explicitly recognized that reconfiguring existing concepts to generate new understanding is a legitimate form of research. This is exactly what large language models do. They don't conduct new experiments, but they manipulate the symbolic representations of all prior experiments and theories contained within their training data to generate novel propositions. They're operating primarily in this domain of synthesis. And here's the kicker. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in human history have come from synthesis, not just from brand new empirical discoveries. Now, before we get too excited about AI as our new knowledge-creating overlords, let's examine the skeptical position. Critics argue that AI systems are fundamentally predictive models that excel at pattern matching, not genuine invention. Thomas Wolfe characterizes current AI as manifold filling gaps between existing data points but not creating genuinely new territory. This is a direct consequence of how these models work. They assume the future will resemble the past, making them great at generating outputs consistent with training data, but terrible at true novelty. Studies in material science show that machine learning models predict properties well within known chemical families, but fail dramatically with entirely novel compounds. This reveals the extrapolation gap. AI handles interpolation within known domains well, but struggles with extrapolation to entirely new scenarios. exactly what scientific breakthroughs often require. AI also faces what I call the epistemic hazard trio: the paywall problem. Most high-quality scientific knowledge is behind paywalls, so AI learns from less reliable free sources. Bias amplification, perpetuating biases in training data, and hallucination, generating plausible but incorrect statements. Hallucination is particularly concerning. AI systems generate confident-sounding but completely incorrect statements because they're rewarded for providing confident answers, rather than acknowledging uncertainty. In science, where validity is foundational, this threatens epistemic integrity. AI also struggles with causal reasoning, often mistaking correlation for causation. So the skeptics have valid points. AI systems are fundamentally limited. But these limitations don't negate AI's contribution to knowledge creation. Instead, they define the terms of a new partnership. Let me paint a picture of the central problem facing modern researchers. The volume of published information has far outstripped the capacity of any individual or team to absorb it. Researchers struggle to keep track of developments even within their own specialized subdisciplines, let alone across different fields. This information overload acts as a significant bottleneck to progress. Here's where AI becomes genuinely revolutionary. AI-powered research assistants like Elicit, SciSpace, and Laser AI are transforming the foundational step of all research, the literature review. These tools can ingest and analyze thousands of academic articles in minutes, performing tasks that would take a human researcher weeks or months. They can extract key data points, summarize complex papers, identify themes across bodies of literature, and screen papers for systematic reviews with up to 80% acceleration. By automating these laborious tasks, AI frees human researchers to focus on higher-level cognition, interpretation, critical analysis, and creative thought. It's not replacing human intelligence, it's amplifying it by removing the bandwidth bottleneck. But here's what's really fascinating. Creating new knowledge through synthesis isn't novel. It's a cornerstone of scientific history. Think about calculus, developed nearly simultaneously by Newton and Leibniz, or evolution by natural selection, formulated independently by Darwin and Wallace. These weren't coincidences. They occurred because foundational knowledge had reached a critical point where synthesis into new theory was imminent. Watson and Crick's discovery of DNA structure exemplifies this. Their breakthrough came from synthesizing Rosalind Franklin's data with existing knowledge of chemical bonding. Einstein's relativity was aided by mathematician Marcel Grossman's formal tools. AI systems function as a modern catalyst for this same process of synthesis, but on a global and nearly instantaneous scale. They effectively collapse the time and distance that separated researchers in the past, making the entire accessible corpus of human knowledge a single, interconnected web. An LLM can connect an insight from a recent biomedical paper with a chemical principle from a 1980s materials science journal and a mathematical technique from an obscure preprint server. This is a feat of interdisciplinary connection that would be nearly impossible for a human researcher to achieve. This capability manifests in concrete ways. AI can identify novel correlations by analyzing vast datasets to uncover patterns invisible to human analysis. For instance, analyzing data from millions of wearable devices might reveal previously undocumented correlations between specific sleep patterns and health conditions. Even more exciting, AI systems are now being explicitly designed for automated hypothesis generation. Google's AI co-scientist system, built on the Gemini model, uses a multi-agent framework to generate, reflect upon, rank, and evolve novel research ideas. The hypotheses it's generated for drug repurposing and antimicrobial resistance have been successfully validated in laboratory experiments. Now, here's how we resolve the apparent contradiction between AI's interpolative nature and its capacity for novel discovery. The power lies in what I call mega-interpolation across the entire high-dimensional manifold of recorded human knowledge. A human expert's knowledge, while deep, is necessarily confined to a small, localized region of this vast space. When an AI identifies a connection, a short path between a concept in that expert's region and a distant concept from another discipline or era, the connection appears to the human as a revolutionary creative leap. For the AI, it was an act of interpolation within its comprehensive internal map. The AI didn't create new territory, but it revealed the true, complex, and deeply interconnected shape of the territory we already possess. This act of revelation is, epistemically, a profound form of discovery. So if AI isn't replacing human researchers, what exactly is this new relationship? I love the metaphor used in the paper, the human-AI centaur. This envisions a hybrid intelligence where the distinct capabilities of human and machine are fused to achieve a common goal. This fusion is necessary because the cognitive processes of humans and LLMs are fundamentally different. Human cognition is embodied, value-driven, and deeply social. It's shaped by physical interaction with the world, emotional experience, and an innate capacity for causal and social reasoning. Our goals are guided by intrinsic motivations like curiosity and a desire to solve societal problems. In stark contrast, an LLM is a disembodied, asocial system. It's a statistical pattern matcher lacking genuine understanding, physical grounding, or intrinsic motivation. Its outputs aren't the product of belief or intent, but of probabilistic calculation. But here's the beautiful thing. They're not competitors for the same cognitive space. They're uniquely suited to be partners. Let me break down this division of cognitive labor. AI's primary strengths are unparalleled speed and scale in processing information, analyzing massive data sets, recognizing patterns, and executing repetitive analytical tasks with precision and initial objectivity. Human intelligence excels where AI falters: creativity, emotional intelligence, contextual understanding, and ethical decision-making. We can navigate ambiguity and generate truly novel concepts. AI's weaknesses mirror human strengths. It's susceptible to bias, lacks true understanding, cannot perform robust causal reasoning, and is prone to hallucinations. Human weaknesses are our finite cognitive bandwidth, mental fatigue, and cognitive biases. This symbiotic relationship necessitates a redefinition of the human researcher's role. We're shifting focus away from routine data manipulation toward higher-order cognitive functions that AI cannot replicate. The human researcher becomes the epistemic director, setting the overarching research agenda. This involves formulating initial questions, defining the scope of inquiry, and guiding AI exploration. This role is driven by uniquely human attributes: curiosity, creativity, and deep understanding of societal needs. Perhaps most crucially, the human serves as the critical verifier and ethical arbiter. They must scrutinize AI output, designing real-world or computational experiments to validate synthesized hypotheses. They're the ultimate safeguard against AI-generated hallucinations, biases, and overgeneralizations. Finally, humans become knowledge weavers, synthesizing AI's fragmented outputs into coherent narratives, placing findings in broader scientific and social context, and translating raw knowledge into applicable wisdom. This represents a fundamental reversal of the traditional scientific workflow. The classic model begins with a human researcher formulating a hypothesis based on their necessarily limited literature survey, followed by experiment and data analysis. The new paradigm is increasingly one of synthesis-driven discovery. It begins with the entire corpus of accessible knowledge as a data set, from which AI synthesizes a vast array of plausible hypotheses. The human role then shifts from the initial act of creation to the critical act of curation, prioritization, experimental validation, and deep interpretation. Science becomes less about the singular aha moment and more about the systematic, human-guided exploration of a vast possibility space mapped out by artificial intelligence. So, where does all this lead us? Looking forward, this human-AI symbiosis isn't a static endpoint, but the beginning of what might be called the fifth paradigm of science, a successor to our current data-intensive fourth paradigm. This new era may be characterized by AI systems that move beyond synthesis to become more autonomous partners in research, capable of designing experiments, interpreting complex data, and engaging in continuous, self-improving cycles of inquiry. But this transformation will require new research methodologies and philosophical frameworks, including what researchers call adaptive epistemology, that's flexible enough to account for the role of non-human generative agents in the research process. The goal isn't simply automation, but the creation of a system where AI-driven exploration and human-guided insight work in a virtuous cycle, dramatically accelerating the pace of scientific and biomedical discovery. But here's the crucial point. The ultimate impact of AI on science will depend on the wisdom with which we wield it. The greatest risk isn't that AI will replace human researchers, but that it will be used in ways that devalue critical thinking, creativity, and ethical judgment. The path forward requires conscious effort to prioritize human oversight, foster critical engagement with AI outputs, and embed ethical principles at every stage. We shouldn't build an artificial oracle delivering unquestioned truths, but a powerful collaborator that amplifies human insight. So can AI create new knowledge? Yes, not alone, but as part of a symbiotic partnership with human intelligence. AI represents a powerful mechanism for advancing human knowledge. Knowledge creation isn't occurring within the AI, but through the AI, as a critical component of a new research system. The AI provides an unprecedented conduit for connecting information, but the human researcher provides the consciousness and judgment necessary to transform novel propositions into established knowledge. Artificial intelligence is poised to become an indispensable partner, but the human mind must remain the ultimate arbiter of meaning. That's all for today's Mindcast. I hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on AI's role in knowledge creation. It's not about replacement, it's about amplification. It's not about the end of human discovery, it's about the beginning of a new chapter. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, the future of knowledge is a collaboration.